Hello everybody and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and check out our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. Check out our altar sleeves, support the show by using the code MAGICMICS at checkout for 5% off anything in the store. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, MTG Nerd Girl.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Ruben Bressler.
What's going on? How's it going?
Well, it's going to be a minute before we're all three back together. I'm about to pick all the crap up, leave Florida. This state is insane. And go to Tennessee, also fairly insane. Different, but different, but sane. Insane. But yeah, I'm about to do that. So we're going to be offline for about a week and a half-ish, and hopefully no more than that. And we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
We'll have lots of news to share with you.
So much news.
It's gonna be tough to not see you guys. Because I don't have a lot of rituals. I don't have a lot of consistency in my life. The thing that's been the most consistent in my life is number one, my family, number two, Magic the Gathering, and at this point, number three is Magic Mics. I've been doing this show for 7 years now. So this is where I am.
Like we literally, I think, just passed the 7-year mark. Like,
yep.
Actual
here in the middle of May.
Oh my God, it's got to be May. All right.
Can I share one quick thing?
Please do.
For people I think that might find it very relevant. We just talked about our sponsor Card Hoarder. On the 11th, there's a Pioneer tournament that we are hosting. So if you would like to come play against me, if you used our sponsor here for your rental decks or purchases, you can come play Magic with me on the 11th.
Yay, you should do that. And get a rental program. It's easy, it's fun, it's cheap.
Yeah, Card Hoarder is great. Rent a deck for a day, you pay 2%, and then you turn it back in, and you get to play a sweet tournament with cash prizes.
Absolutely. All right, well, that said here, we also begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who is the most eloquent, letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our retro top 10 Rise of the Eldrazi cards. Ruben?
Well, we had some passionate folks who wanted to have their opinions known, but I really enjoyed this comment from Valerie Fatality on the YouTube, who writes, "This was the one chance to talk about the single biggest, goofiest ability in Magic the Gathering. The only black bordered card with an activated ability that costs 20 mana." I'm, of course, referring to Spawn Sire of Ulamog.
Spawn Sire of Ulamog is 10 generic mana for a 7/11. Yes, a 7/11. A rare Eldrazi with Annihilator 1, which means whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices 1 permanent. For 4 generic mana, you create 2 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens. They have sacrifice this creature at a colorless mana. And for 20 generic mana, you can do as much as you want. Cast any number of Eldrazi spells from among cards you own outside the game without paying their mana costs. This is a silly, ridiculous, over-the-top card that does silly, ridiculous, over-the-top stuff. And from now until the end of time, whenever they make an Eldrazi or they make a Changeling, at some point, Spawn Sire of Ulamog is probably going to show up in the conversation because that's one of those weird abilities that does it.
I mean, fortunately, the most ridiculous spell creatures that you can cast are already Eldrazi's, so it hasn't been broken by changelings just yet, but someday they'll make some worm or dragon or ridiculous thing, and then Spawn Sire of Ulamog will re-enter the conversation.
Yeah, the other thing too is that I think getting to 20 mana is kind of getting easier and easier as time goes by with the treasure tokens and the Goldspan dragons. And I mean, it's not super uncommon for people in just like standard to randomly have 20 treasure tokens. Treasure, that's maybe a little bit of exaggeration, but like 8 is easy at this point.
Wizards just get nuts with these things. Like everybody gets a treasure token for anything whatsoever. Like just treasure tokens all over the place.
Well, they're also making a ton of mana doublers. So you don't even need to get to 20. You need to get to 10 and then get a bootlegger's stash or a mana reflection.
In the set that we're talking about today, there's a board clear that says you get 1 treasure token for every single creature killed.
Yep.
So you could just like, okay, I'll just take 10 more treasures in addition to, killing everything. And then you get to then just windmill slam this idiot. Great. Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
They will continuously be sad that they made Revel in Riches. I know that card will haunt them forever because they said 10 treasures wins you the game. That's funny. I like that. That's funny. All right. That said, we do appreciate Valerie Fatality being part of the show. Congratulations. Please contact us on Twitter DM at Magic Mike's Cast. We would appreciate that. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway. And stay tuned for our top 10 list this week. And maybe you can win next week's, well, the next top 10's free gift certificate. Because we will be back and we will read those comments. So leave them on this video and or your favorite social media outlet. All right, that said, it is time to talk about Commander Legends 2. There has been much, I guess teeth gnashing might be a way to put it. I would say that Commander Legends 1, and again, how many times have we been here? Whenever Wizards does something for the first time, they go completely nuts. They go way overboard most of the time to make double sure that that thing's going to work and it's going to be a hit and it's going to sell and all that good stuff. And they crammed it with Vampiric Tutors and Mana Drains, Scroll Racks. And this one, they're just like, nah, why don't we just make some like pretty neat commander cards? The power level isn't off the charts, but I think it's a pretty fun looking set to me.
Yeah, this set definitely feels more like a commander set than a money grab. I mean, we had Jeweled Lotus and we had like Jessica's Will and then some crazy older format stuff like Opposition Agent was also in that set. It does feel like they said, we want to come back to our roots of being a commander set. We're going to print more, 10 mana 7/7s that don't have haste. And, more ridiculous effects that don't necessarily win the game without a ton of setup, which I really appreciate.
I am a little bit bummed with the set because I know it is a commander set, but I do wish that there was some sort of middle ground between the EDH decks that they're producing for the set and the actual set itself, because I'm actually pretty excited about it, but like a very high percentage of the cards are just unplayable in regular limited, where I would like this to still be able to be enjoyed, sort of like, I don't know, the the two-player draft set, the Battle Bond. Yeah, stuff like that. Like it still felt like it was still very playable for a limited environment. Whereas this is like in one-on-one, a lot of the cards are just going to be dead or not make a lot of sense or just be very unplayable.
Yeah.
I think
there are a couple of things that are amazing for 2HG though. So that is exciting.
I mean, I think the backgrounds are really interesting, between the initiative and the backgrounds, those were kind of like the big new things in the set for Commander. Yeah. And I thought initiative was pretty neat, but I think backgrounds just feel like, I feel like they can't do too much with them. You know what I mean? If you make them too good, it's going to be de facto, right? And if you don't make it interesting enough, then it's never going to get used, period. So they got to like walk this weird tightrope.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to partner, right? Like you can't make one partner commander so good that the only thing that you play is partner. Same with background. If you just have, if one of the backgrounds was the best card in the set, then it didn't matter what you partnered it with. You would just make a deck for the exclusive purpose of playing with that background. So it would, come off like companion if that were the way it went. So they had to power it all down. And I'm fine with that. With you, if you have a commander that has a background, you're still starting with 9 cards in your hand. You're going to be okay.
That's still very powerful. That said, let's move here to number 10. Nerd Girl, what's number 10?
So my 9 and 10 are my only 2 hires, no sames. So I will see you guys at 8.
Okay.
Okay, then. No problem. Ruben, what's number 10?
I do have a number 10. I only have 1 higher, and I also have a same on my list. My number 10 is a card that just makes me happy. And I felt like I needed to put it on the list. It also is the first time that we've ever gotten a walrus in Magic the Gathering. My number 10 is Bronze Walrus. Nice. Bronze Walrus is a 3 generic mana 2/2 common artifact creature walrus. When it enters the battlefield, you scry 2 and you tap to add 1 mana of any color. Well, look at this cute little nugget. Look at this guy. Some crazy artificer was like, you know what? I'm going to make a walrus. And then they did. And if I've got facial hair like this, I've got to have a walrus on my list.
Wow.
I did see this walrus. I think he's very cute. A lot of these little mechanical animals, there's like the little deer, the elk, the fox, like they're all super adorable. And just the idea of having these little clockwork guys makes me very happy.
Yeah, the Burnished Heart and the Clockwork Fox is very cute. And I like it. I dig it. I feel it's a cute way to add a mana rock in the set that's, new and interesting. And you know, we get to see a walrus.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, much like that is a sort of very pet card, literally Hall. This is definitely one of my sort of pet cards for the set. I think this card is brilliant. It's silly. It's over the top as hell, which is something I really appreciate. And the numbers on it actually make a lot of sense the more I thought about it, because this is a really weird ass card. Because it costs 1 million mana. And you're like, why does it cost 1 million mana? Well, it has a cost reduction mechanic attached to it. And I said, okay, so this thing, it really cares about certain mana costs. So if you play a 4 mana of this type of creature and you play a 5 mana of this type of creature, then this creature is going to cost 6 mana for the Earthquake Dragon. The Earthquake Dragon costs 1 green and 14 generic mana. Okay, so I was like, why 15 mana of all the costs in the world? And I'm like, a 4-drop dragon, a 5-drop dragon. This is your 6-drop dragon. Earthquake Dragon is a rare elemental dragon that is a 10/10 flying trample. It's a flample, but it costs X generic mana less to cast, where X is the total mana value of dragons you control. I was talking about. And for a green and 2 generic mana, you can sacrifice a land colon, return Earthquake Dragon from your graveyard to your hand. It's even got those shenanigans going on. It's big, it's scary, it's freaky. It doesn't need to have a special, you know, D&D frame thing. It could just be a cool ass dragon, and that's what I like about it.
Goldspan Dragon, right? Like you can double your treasures, do a bunch of stuff. I mean, they even have like the little whelp on Arena. Like this is something I can definitely see them posting into the Arena set that they are going to be launching. And there's a lot of options here to make it cheap very quickly, because you have the little whelp that costs 2, reduces it by 2, and then reduces it every single round. Goldspan Dragon, doubling your treasures. Like this is actually not going to be that hard to get out.
Let's go.
Yeah. Agreed. This is like a Galtha Prime. This is like a powered up Galtha Primal Hunt. It's like a differently powered.
It's differently powered.
Galtha,
it's still cool though.
Primal Hunter, or like, you know, the Great Henge. If you have anything that is doing this effect, you're gonna get to play it for significantly less. You know, much less than half of its original cost. Even if you're only playing a 6-drop, like you're probably able to cast this in Commander. Even if you're only playing 1 other dragon, much less if you have 2. If you have 2 dragons in play, this thing is effectively free.
Yeah, I mean, when you play 2 or 3 mana for this, it's just a hug from Jesus at that point. Bananas. All right, let's move on here to number 9. Ruben, what's number 9?
My number 9 is a card that they've been trying to make white card draw like midway reasonable recently, and this card seems fine. I'm kind of excited for this card. It seems very good in 4 to 6 player games. They tried something like this with Secret Rendezvous in Strixhaven, but that one was more targeted. So I really like what they did with Cut a Deal. Cut a Deal is 2 generic and a white for a sorcery. Each opponent draws a card. Then you draw a card for each opponent who drew a card this way. In a 4-player game, that's draw 3 cards, and each of your opponents. Oh, yours was number 10 on this.
Oh, so close.
We're right there. I love this card, and much more because it's going into my Commander deck, because it fits my theme.
It is white card draw, which is really important. I think that this is a great way to help make games more fun and interesting for possibly the players who are doing poorly. You know, oftentimes you can throw them a bone and get them back in the game and help you take down the tyrant. And that is nice. But again, just white card draw. It's exciting. It's not awful. It's not like, you know, each player draw 3 cards for 7 mana. Like it's just absurdly taxed and equally as beneficial for your opponent. So this is nice.
Nice. Wizard, look, I mean, it's taken to the year of our Lord 2021 and 2022 to actually see white card draw that's not like completely embarrassing, to the point where now they're just sticking it on Gray Ogres or whatever. 3 mana, 2/2, draw a card in white because they can. And they just felt like for so long, they just had that wall up and they're like, nope, can't do it. The color pie will never be the same. It's like, no, dude, white will not get played if it doesn't get some of the advantages that every other color is getting. And they're finally giving them.
It used to be green and white, but then they started giving the like Elvish Visionary type mechanics where it's like, play this elf, draw a card. And now they're like, you know, we could just stick these on white creatures and, you know, the world won't end. And I'm like, yes, because I like white.
I like it as well. So that card is super sweet, and I love it. Speaking of super sweet cards that I love, got a lot of cards on them, got a lot of words on them rather, which is fine. Because you can't not love Minsk and Boo. Who doesn't love Minsk and Boo? I can't.
Of course, you love Minsk and Boo.
Minsk and Boo, go for the eyes. So Minsk and Boo, Timeless Heroes, is a green, red, and 2 generic mana for a 3 loyalty planeswalker Minsk. And when it enters the battlefield and at the beginning of your upkeep, you may create Boo, a legendary 1/1 red hamster creature token with trample and haste. And +1, put 3 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target creature with trample or haste. And -2, sacrifice a creature. When you do, Minsk and Boo, Timeless Heroes deals X damage to any target, where X is that creature's power. If the sacrificed creature was a hamster, draw X cards. And it can be your commander. Yeah. Amazing.
There is a statue of Minsk and Boo in Baldur's Gate.
Is there really?
Yes, there is.
That's awesome.
In the city of Baldur's Gate, there is a statue that is labeled. The plaque says the Beloved Ranger. But it is a statue of a powerful warrior in plate mail cradling a hamster in his hands. And
that's awesome.
It's Minsk and Boo. And he's great.
Have a little hamster plushie. I thought I had easy access to it, and I was gonna
tell him to go for the eyes, and
yeah, but I couldn't find it, so sorry.
That's okay. But Minsk and Boo is a wonderful planeswalker, and I love it.
I don't know if you've I don't want to give spoilers for any of the Baldur's Gate games, but I guess
we're 20 years old.
Those games are 20 years old. The statue actually was Minsk and Boo, who had been petrified.
Okay.
At one point, so I don't know if the statue is there. I think the statue was replaced because he was there for a long time, and people were like, "What happened to the Beloved Ranger?" Oh, he was petrified. So they've replaced it with a new statue.
Nice.
I like that it keeps the flavor of Minsk and Boo very similar to the story, as well as the previous Minsk and Boo that we saw from AFR. So it makes the little hamster, it makes him larger and continues to do what those colors want to do. And it feels strong, but it doesn't feel oppressive. So I like it.
Yeah, and in a world of Commander, continually getting Boo back is not a big deal. Whereas, in a constructed format, it would feel a lot more powerful. All right, let's move on here to number 8. Nerd Girl, what is your number 8?
I do have a number 8. It's a card I found very interesting and a bit surprising. There are a lot of those recursion decks where you have a couple of combos where you make sure you put something in the yard, bring it back, and it's sort of like a 3-card combo. But I'm wondering, does that change when one of the pieces you can cast over and over again? And that's exactly what you can do with Altar of Baal? Altar Baal.
Yes.
Baal, right?
Baal.
So this is an adventure, which has one side is Bone Offering, 3 mana, 2 colors, and a black for a sorcery adventure. You can create a 1/4 black skeleton with Menace, and then you can play it as an artifact, and for 3 mana, 2 and a black, you can tap it, exile a creature you control, so little mice tokens, rats, whatever you want to do, and then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, activate as a sorcery. Most of these spells are often sorceries anyway, but once that card is gone, they're done. And if they happen to have the exile, the 1 of removal spell for your big thing that you brought back, you now have to find another way to recur it usually. This is just unlimited, and it comes with the fodder that you need anyway. And a 4/1 Menacer is already a good body. This just feels really strong.
Yeah, this seems fantastic. I don't really care that artifacts go on adventures, just to be clear. I don't care at all. I don't care if enchantments go on adventures, artifacts go on adventures, just go nuts. Hell, have planeswalkers go on adventures. I don't care.
Not enough room in the text box for that. Although we did have an adventure, at least one adventure with a flavor text,
right,
which was wild to me. That there was enough room that they were like, we need a flavor text on this adventure.
I see no reason why the other side can't be a modal card. We have modals for everything else. I think we should go on an adventure and bring back the Holy Grail on the other side.
See? Perfect. Fantastic.
Baal, by the way, is Bawl is how it's pronounced, or Bahal, I guess you could say.
Weep.
Is
cool weep.
Faerunian god of ritualistic murder and sacrifice. So pretty dark deity for them to be referencing. We've come a long way from when we weren't allowed to
have Wrath of God.
Have Wrath of God or have pentagrams on magic cards.
Goodness. Oh my gosh. Well, that card is super sweet. Ruben, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is a very simple card, but an effective one, and one that has an ability that I think is going to be very valuable in Commander, and that is Campfire.
Okay.
Campfire, very simple magic card. 1 generic mana artifact that has 2 activated abilities. Pay a generic and tap it, you gain 2 life. Take a short rest. We love it. We get back some of our hit points. Pay 2 generic mana, tap, and exile Campfire. Put all commanders you own from the command zone and from your graveyard into your hand. Then shuffle your graveyard into your library. So we get a little bit of an Elixir of Immortality effect, a little bit of a reshuffle, but we also get a little bit of a commander tax discount.
Because that removes all the commander tax, right?
Well, if it puts it in your hand, then you just cast it from your hand without having the commander tax.
Nice.
But then when that commander dies, you go back to the original taxed amount.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. So if my commander has died 3 times or been countered 3 times, right, and originally cost 2, but now would cost 8, I can Campfire to my hand and just cast it for 2 again. Then if it dies, it would then cost 10.
That's great. For such like a cool, straightforward card, I'm honestly a little surprised it doesn't have any flavor text, as we were just talking about, right? Like, yeah, it seemed like it'd want some.
I mean, I like these cards, like the 50 feet of rope.
Yeah, that's great.
Just generic adventure stuff.
Love it. What's good? It's useful. For my number 8, a lot of these cards, the way I kind of looked at them and sort of reacted to them, I was like, if I read the card and I'm like, man, I really want to build a commander deck around this commander, around this background, whatever it is. I was like, if I want to build a commander deck around it, I think that's cool, and I want to denote it. So for my number 8 here, I read this card and I was like, this card is super duper cool, and if I can't build Minsk and Boo, by God, I'm going to build Tasha, the Witch Queen, as my Planeswalker commander, because Tasha, the Witch Queen, is dope. It's a black, blue, and 3 generic mana for a 4 loyalty mythic legendary Planeswalker, Tasha, and whenever you cast a spell you don't own, create a 3/3 black demon creature token. So +1, draw a card. For each opponent, exile up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard and put a page counter on it. And for -3, you may cast a spell from among cards and exile with page counters on them without paying their mana cost. And it can be your commander. So the idea that I can steal your stuff and play lots of cards that steal your stuff and play lots of spells that I don't own over and over again and get lots of demon tokens and stuff and get it automatically, +1, draw on a card. All the things I like doing, I think this card is sweet.
Yeah, the card is also one of the nicest arts. I'm actually a little disappointed that it's printed in this set because everything about this card screams Strixhaven Silver Quill to me. And I think that this would have been an amazing professor and super flavorful, but like it's a great card. But yeah, I saw the artist and the model talking on Twitter about it, and they had recently had an auction for the art, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous.
Nice.
There's a real life person that looks like this.
Yeah, no, there was a real model that was on Twitter being like, I'm so excited that I got to like have my likeness on a card. Thank you for, choosing me to be the, inspiration for it. It was really cool. Nice. And the artist had like a really down to earth chat with the community about it. And it was awesome.
I want to be very clear. If you look like this, you should DM me.
The man has a type. All right.
I have a type, and it's a witch person. It's the daughter of Baba Yaga. That's my type. Tasha is the adopted daughter of Baba Yaga. She wrote the Demonomicon, the treatise that describes all of the things that live in the abyss, and also can ruin my life if she so chose.
You're into that.
Listen. I am not going to apologize for the things I'm interested in.
Right. No kink shame here. We want to hear to number 7. Ruben, what's number 7?
My number 7 is also something that I'm interested in, and that is gates. We love gates in this house. Pick up your Maze's Ends now because they just printed 1 million more of them. And there's a number of them that are very cool here. But the one that I'm most interested in involves the Wonderbringer, one of the gods of the Faerunian pantheon, who is the maker of all things, the divine inspirer, and that is the god Gand, where you would walk through the Gand Gate. Gand Gate is a regular land, not a legendary land, gate that says that gates you control enter the battlefield untapped. I love that.
That's pretty great.
Then it taps for a wingding. And it says tap to add 1 mana of any color that a gate you control could produce. So we've had Plaza of Harmony, which is the land that you want to play as like your 3rd land to play untapped, to play your Gatecrasher Ram or your Gates Ablaze or your Summit, your Guild Summit or whatever, what have you. This is another land that you want to be as your 3rd land drop in the gate deck.
I love all things gates. I want all the gates. I love the Mazes in deck. Like, I want to play the Mazes in deck in Historic. Please bring all of the gates into Arena so I can play the stupid meme deck because it will make me feel things. That's what I want to do.
I liked gates in Limited. Those are very, very fun.
I mean, very useful, right? You know, dual lands are going to dual land.
We occasionally have a discussion in our Discord about gates in Historic, which I also really love.
I sent you the model. Sorry, I was like half paying attention. I found your dream girl for you.
Oh my God.
There's the model.
Yeah, well,
there you go.
Gonna have to log off of this podcast.
Tonight on Love Connection. All right, Nerd Girl, what's your number 7?
All right, let's go ahead and talk about, I feel like Evan kind of went over it a little bit with the steal your cards bit. So, we're going to continue with that theme, and I'm going to try to take some people's stuff. Now, I don't really want to because I am not a blue mage, but I feel like this is a neat card that a blue mage might like. I also like that it's got die roll aspect to it because I love the die roll in Magic. And my favorite thing is when they use the die roll sort of sparingly, where it's like not make or break the card. So we have Gale's Redirection, a 3 colorless blue for an instant speed counter spell. It says exile target spell, then roll a d20. If it's 1 through 14, you may cast that card using mana of any color as long as it stays exiled. 15 plus, you can cast it for free. So you can cast their creature, instant sorcery, and it doesn't need to be in the same turn. It's got a little bit of variance, but either way, you're kind of getting that card. Obviously, casting it for free is a huge deal, but I mean, it's not necessarily blowing up the game. So I don't really like counter magic, but I think that this card is interesting, brings a lot to the table, and has the fun mechanic I like.
It brings a political aspect to counterspelling, which is kind of neat, right? Like, you're going to do X, no, but I may do X later, whether I have to pay for it or not. But, you're still kind of controlling where things are happening. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, very cool card. Kind of like a commandeer, kind of like an Ashiok's Erasure. Very interesting card. I really like this a lot.
Yeah, card's super neat. Speaking of super neat cards that do really stupid things, like I was going to pick, because none of the rest of my cards have this ability, so I was going to pick one creature with Myriad, because Myriad come back for the set or whatever, and there's some really cool ones out there, and there's a bunch of them that I liked and whatever, and then once you get to this card, you're just like, just give everything Myriad. Let's give everything Myriad with Legion loyalty. Let's just go completely insane for 8 freaking mana for 2 white, 6 generic mana. It is a mythic enchantment that just says creatures you control have Myriad. And for those who don't know, it means whenever a creature with Myriad attacks for each opponent other than defending player, you may create a token that's a copy of that creature that's tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. Exile the token to end of combat and just let the enter the battlefield triggers go completely bananas. Like attack with a Mole Drifter and just draw a million cards, or just whatever the hell you can come up with to do something cool.
Yeah, there are a few cards where I'm like, oh, this just kills the table when you cast it.
It's just everything dies.
This and I think it's like True Conviction in white are basically the only cards where I'm like, this card just will end the game every time that it resolves.
Yeah, so there's the cool angels, but I thought that was super cool.
Any deck that has like some neat ETB triggers is always really fun.
Yeah,
and
much less if you have like a bunch of creatures that say when you deal combat damage to an opponent, or whenever another creature comes into play, or if you have a lord, God forbid you have a number of changeling, lords of some kind, and then attack 5 opponents. Yeah, this can get out of hand real quick.
Yeah, I mean, you attack with your Restoration Angel, and suddenly you have like 4 Restoration Angels, and it just goes bonkers. Let's go. So yeah, that card seems really, really fun. Let's move on here to number 6. Nerd Girl, what's number 6?
Number 6 is something we've kind of touched on before with one of our earlier cards, but It's not an exciting card, but it's a card I am excited to see. And again, that's just because white doesn't get a lot of card draw. And I think that this makes for good, balanced, limited gameplay. So we're going to talk about Roving Harper. This is a 3 mana, 2 colorless, and a white for a elf scout. That's white. It's a 2/2 that says when it enters battlefield, draw a card. That's it. Super simple. But this is the kind of Magic I like to play. A little low to the ground, scrappy, get resources, manage your resources, and grind out the game.
I'm shocked it's an elf, honestly.
Yeah. Well, there has been a meme in the pauper community of mono white elves, where they're trying to build a mono white elf deck. And there's the 1/4 that can tap a creature that's an elf monk. There's very few, but we finally have another one, which I really love. And the Harpers, by the way, are a group of effectively altruists who are a secret society of do-gooders throughout the Sword Coast. If you ever see the insignia of the Harper, which unsurprisingly is a little harp that they wear either inside or on proudly on their lapel, then you know you found a friend.
Oh, well, there you go. I recognize that, this is Grey Ogre and it draws a card and that's cool. But I would also think it would be kind of interesting to have the dynamic of the 2 mana 2/2, the bear that draws a card, be the white card. And Elvish Visionary is a 2 mana 1/1 that draws a card, but it's an elf, right? But the 2 mana 2/2 could be like a human soldier, right? Because that's white's main thing. It's interesting. It feels like they're kind of moving closer to that.
Yeah, I mean, we do have Llanowar. What's it called?
The 3 mana Llanowar.
The 3 mana Llanowar elf, like Llanowar Emissary or something like that.
Something like
where it's a 3 mana 2/2 that draws a card and also taps for a green mana. So if they're going to give this to us in white, we'll get there eventually.
Llanowar Visionary.
Llanowar Visionary.
Yep, should have an M21.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so 3 mana 2/2 draws a card, but it taps for a green. Again, I could see a 2 mana 2/2 that draws a card, and that's just what it does for white. And white gets a cool draw card. So
nice.
Ruben, what's number 6?
My number 6. I knew I was going to have one of these on my list, and I didn't know which one, and it ended up being this one. Brass dragons are the weakest of the metallic dragons. However, I think that this one might be the strongest of the ancient blank dragon cards in the set. I'm going to talk about Ancient Brass Dragon. Ancient Brass Dragon is 5 generic black for a 7/6 flyer. So 7 mana for a 7/6 flyer. Elder Dragon. It is a mythic. And when it deals combat damage to a player, roll a d20. When you do, put any number of target creature cards with total mana value X or less from graveyards onto the battlefield under your control, where X is the result. That is an amazing line of text. I read that and I go, what in the world is happening? I love the randomness of it. I think that you can't get more Dungeons and Dragons than say roll a d20. I love it. I think it's great.
This is a black ability. This is a black dragon.
This is a black dragon.
Yeah. If you said it, I don't think you said it.
I said it's 5 generic black. It's too much? You think it's too much?
It is.
Well,
it's too swingy. I don't want to resolve a card and roll a 1 and then lose the game. And I don't want to resolve the card, roll a 20 and win the game. This is not D&D. I love the D&D flavor, but
this is one of the
I
most
also
expensive
want Magic to be structured. I want a breakdown.
Listen, if it's a 7 mana creature without haste.
Without haste is the big one. You gotta this thing has to survive 3 other turns around the table, then has to hit them. It has no trample. So if it lives and it hits them, and then you can roll, maybe, right?
You're not always playing multiplayer.
Yeah.
And there are things that give your creatures haste, like hammers and perforoses and things. And I just don't want a die roll to decide the game at any point. That's not where I want Magic to be headed.
That's fair.
And I can understand how, again, this is a mythic and it's silly and it's over the top and it has to jump through a whole bunch of hoops. But if you jump through all the hoops, you get to do the cool thing. So
but sometimes it's not cool. Sometimes you roll a 1 and you're just like, oh, poop, I hit 0. And that's not fun either.
Well, I assure you we'll be talking more about ancient dragons in the future because they're ridiculous. But for my number 6, this is a legendary creature who I read what it did and I went, man, I cannot wait. If I was going to build a commander deck again, this is the card I would start with, because like the gears just start turning whenever you read Baba Lysaga Night Witch. For a green, a black, and a generic mana, it is a rare legendary human warlock. It's a 3/3, so 3/3 for 3 mana. You tap and sacrifice up to 3 permanents. If there were 3 or more card types among the sacrificed permanents, each opponent loses 3 life, you gain 3 life, and you draw 3 cards. I just want to put all those pieces together and just watch them go. An artifact creature is already 2 types, so if you sacrifice an artifact creature, you just have to sacrifice one other thing and just go nuts. Like, let's go. Card's sweet.
It's a fun build-around card. I really like the flavor of it.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to do. I just want to build around this card and see what it can do.
Yeah,
I
like that.
The flavor of Baba Lysaga is that she was the other mother, I think is the nickname, which is the midwife that helped raise Strahd von Zarovich, the Baron of Ravenloft, who had a biological mother, but Baba Lysaga was a devout follower of the Night Mother, or the Mother Night, in Barovia, and raised Strahd to be the terror that he is. And so she was one of the bad influences that led to that. And I think that that's really cool that they put her on a card.
Nice.
Nice.
Card's super cool. Let's move on here to number 5. Nerd Girl, what's number 5?
I have a card that I think people will really like. I don't know that, it's going to be one of the fanciest, but people tend to like big, powerful demons. And I think this one will definitely make the cut. So we're going to talk about Balor, a 5 mana 5/5 flyer. So for 3 red, you're going to be getting a demon that flies that says whenever it attacks or dies, choose 1 or more. Each mode must hit a different player. You can have target opponent draw 3 cards, then discard at random, so you can kind of mess up their hand or fix your own, one of the two, if you got a bunch of lands and dumb stuff. You can also target player sacrifices a non-token artifact. And you can also have Balor deal damage to target opponent equal to the number of cards in their hand. So you can just like kind of lava axe someone, which is pretty neat. And you can pick and choose, and you can be like, okay, well, sort of politics your way around with this. And it doesn't have haste, and so it's got to survive. But a lot of times, like I said, in heads-up EDH games, that's okay.
I mean, goblin luring them always seems good against the person who's always running the, the counter spells or whatever. Target opponent sacrifices a non-token artifact. There's always like that one guy, right? That's like doing the weird, stupid stuff, and that hits them. And then there's always that one person who likes to draw way too many cards. And that's what that third ability is waiting on. It feels like that looks so weird, like psychographics. And they're like, how do we like hurt every single one of these psychographics?
Yeah. Balor's, I think, are the most powerful beings in D&D that don't have legendary actions. I think they are incredibly dangerous, and one of their most powerful abilities is called Death Throes, which is when they die, basically a huge immolating fireball happens, which I love that we have on the card for Balor. They are like the main demonic fighting force in the Blood War, which is the never-ending battle that occurs between the demons of the Abyss and the devils of the Nine Hells. They're always on the front lines trying to invade and fight each other, and they are the embodiment of chaos, and they are fun.
And they are mythic, and that's just a 5 mana mythic monster. And
Yeah.
I'll take it. Ruben, what's number 5?
My number 5 is the next higher on my list.
I see. All right, cool. Well, it's a good thing we were talking about ancient dragons, because it's time to talk about another one. They're all kind of dumb, all right? They're all a very shade of dumb. Sometimes you could argue that they end the game. You roll a die and the game's over. And you roll a guy and sometimes the game's not over. I'm not sure if this is going to end the game precisely the moment you get its ability to trigger, but it's not going to take that much further off for the ancient bronze dragon. This is the green one. the Ancient Bronze Dragon to have. This card is so damn weird. For 2 green, 5 generic mana, it is a 7/7 Mythic Elder Dragon with flying. Okay, great. And when it deals combat damage to a player, you roll a d20. And when you do, you put X +1/+1 counters on each of up to 2 target creatures where X is the result. Okay, put 40 counters on some stuff and live the dream. Let's go.
Yeah. This one is the weirdest one to try to evaluate because this one feels the most win more, right? This one feels like you're already hitting with a 7-mana dragon. Like, what are we putting more counters on for?
It's a 40 life, format. So
yeah, exactly. So it is, and I've played against enough Mowu decks, right? And against Marwyn decks. There are lots of cool ways to use these +1/+1 counters, much less if you have something like a Walking Ballista in play.
Walking Ballista, the other cool thing about it is like it kind of protects itself in a way that like some of the other dragons might not, in that you make, even if you roll a 5, you have 2 little mice tokens or whatever, those mice tokens now mean serious business. So now even when they do find the answer for this, they still have a problem. Mm-hmm. Whereas like sometimes that's not necessarily the case with these big bombs. So it does need to connect, but once it does, it's not really so simple to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And, new cards like Kodama of the West Tree can actually give it trample if you can put one of those +1/+1 counters on it. And
sure.
So that helps out a lot. But yeah, we ain't done with the Ancient Dragons, but we're done for now. So let's move on here to number 4. Nerd Girl, what you got?
All right. Well, this is, I think, better than an Ancient Dragon. It does the same. It flies. It's adorable. And I like it. And your dragons are stupid. So we're going to talk about Lulu, the Loyal Holophant.
There we go.
This is my number 5.
This is an amazing 4-mana Elephant Angel. It has flying, and it says at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you control left the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, then untap them. You can choose a background. It's a 4-mana 3/2 flyer, which is about rate for a blue draftable type flyer. We tend to see those stats with that mana cost, but then it does so much more, and it slowly but surely pumps up your entire team, which is very much what White wants to be doing. It's a Elephant Angel. How is this? I've never wanted anything more in my life.
Do know you put the counters on each tapped creature and then you untap them. But beyond that, this card is an Elephant Angel. I mean, how can you not love Elephant Angels?
I love it.
It's right there.
Love it. It's great.
It looks so cute.
She's very cute and she's very good. Lulu was a major part of season 3 of the Broken Pact that I did for the Dungeons and Dragons Twitch channel. She escorted the party all the way through Avernus for a full 10 episodes. If you ever play Descent into Avernus, you will meet Lulu, the Holophant. If you do that, I don't want to spoil too much for you, but she's a Holophant, which is, of course, an elephant angel, small celestial, little floaty elephant baby, must protect, who, unfortunately, previous to you meeting her, has lost most of her memories, which means that she has also lost some of her abilities. But over the course of the adventure, she will regain some of her abilities as you help her remember her past and fight alongside her together. And so she's a lovely character, and I'm so excited that she gets to be on a Magic card now.
The whole remember who you are type, trope.
Yeah.
Like, you're an elephant angel.
That's right.
Right. All right. Well, that was awesome. Let's move here to Ruben's number 4. What you got?
So Lulu was my number 5.
Right.
My top 5 was going to be my top 5 because I knew what my top 2 were going to be. And then I was like, the next 3 are the cutest things I've ever seen in my life. Lulu, absolutely on that list. And my number 4, it's very tough to be cuter than my number 4, but there is a card I think is cuter than my number 4. But my number 4 is, in fact, Owl Bear Cub. Owl Bear Cub Look at that face.
Look at that
Oh my
face.
gosh. Look how angry. Look
Goodness.
how mad that owlbear is. Owlbear cub is 2 generic and a green for a 3/3 for a bird bear. We already got a bird bear. And has the ability Mama's Coming. Mama's Coming is whenever Owlbear Cub attacks a player who controls 8 or more lands, look at the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking that player. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If you put an Owlbear into play with Owlbear Cub, you win. You've won Magic. You're done. You don't have to play Magic anymore.
This card is so cool. This card is sweet.
I love a good foo-foo cuddly poops.
Yes.
This thing is adorable, and I can definitely picture it. We see art that kind of shows the little pup, like we saw with the raptor, right? And you can see the feet of the mama raptor in one of the previous videos that we did. So you see this sort of story being depicted, but this is the first time it actually goes and gets a mother and then beats you with it. So it's pretty neat. I really like it. And you're right. It is quite cute. I don't think this is cuter than Lulu, but like I'll let you slide on this.
Okay. All right. Well, I've got one more entry into the cute factor at my number 3. So we'll have this discussion again.
Okay.
Yes, I will take any ability that's called Mama's Coming, which I think is amazing. And I also appreciate the fact that it definitely feels like we talked about psychographics earlier. It's like there's that guy who ramps like crazy, who ramps, and they just ramp, they cultivate while they Kodama's reach, and blah, 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 blah. So this person needs to be punished, and this is the card that you punish them with. All right, let's move on here to my number 4. Again, I read it, and I went, oh my God, I want to build a deck around this card, because, I mean, traditionally, and this was even in the before times, before Commander was officially official, before Wizards started making Commander products and stuff, you had a certain type of card that was always very expensive. And these would be your mill cards. What was the mill card in Ravnica, the black and the blue? For black and blue.
Funeral?
No, it was before.
Glimpse the Unthinkable.
Glimpse the Unthinkable. Thank you. That card reached like $20 back in the day. And everyone was like, why? And it's like, because casual players love mill cards, and they gave them one of the best damn mill cards I've ever seen in Captain Nagathrod. Am I saying that right? Is that right?
Pretty close.
Nagathrod?
Let me look at the pronunciation here.
Feel free to do so. So the captain himself is a black, blue, and 3 generic mana for a 3/6 mythic legendary horror pirate. And horrors you control have menace. And whenever a horror you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills that many cards, and we ain't done. Because at the beginning of your end step, choose target artifact or creature in an opponent's graveyard that was put there from their library this turn, and put it onto the battlefield under your control. Yeah, it's just insane. I mill over your best creature. It's mine now just because he exists at the end of my turn. Like, let's go.
You said, I'm looking for the name. You said it starts with the word captain?
It starts with captain
yes.
and then N apostrophe Ghathrod. Nagathrod.
I think the list I used doesn't have all of the spoilers then, because I don't have that card.
Oh, that's weird. Well, I will link it here in the chat so you can find it there.
Thank you so much.
You bet. But this card was just like, holy cow, man. Like, not only is it something cool for like horrors, and there's a whole bunch of horrors, and there's a bunch of horrors in like the commander decks they're coming out with, which are neat.
The art is sweet.
The art's insane. So like the art's cool. Horrors needed like a lord, and the mill thing's there, and everybody loves mill cards. Like, this thing's gonna be really expensive.
Yeah. I am one of the people who like mill cards. The very first cards I purchased for money that wasn't like buy a pack and then like build decks out of what I had was a traumatized deck.
Nice.
Traumatized Guilt Feeder was my pet deck as a small girl, and I like to kill people because I am evil and I have no soul. So I do love this card a bunch. I think that the theme of it, the horror pirate, and the art is spectacular. And I can't believe I think this would have been on my top 10 list had I seen this, but it was not on the website, I think. So it must have been one of the more recently spoiled.
I believe it was one of the last ones that were spoiled.
Yeah.
But you can't, again, I'm just like, a 3/6 is insane. The abilities are great.
Yeah. So the good captain here appears in, I believe, either the 19th or the 18th of the 20 levels of Undermountain in Dungeon of the Mad Mage. which is the high level adventure. Most Dungeons and Dragons adventures, when you buy the book, it takes you from like level 1 to 10, right? Dungeon the Mad Mage takes you from 5 to 20. And it is the high level of high levels. It is the dungeoniest dungeon that's ever dungeoned. And you adventure basically to another planet, kind of. And it's a very weird place. But the Captain Nagathrodh and his ship, the Scavenger, are here. His Spelljammer ship, the Scavenger, is here. And you might know that Spelljammer ships, some of them are powered by giant space hamsters, which is where Boo may have come from. Who knows?
Like, I cannot believe that there isn't a foil etched version of this. There's not a D&D drawing version of this. Like, I'm just a little shocked. Like, Wizards is well aware of how much Mill is loved amongst the casuals. Let's move on here to number 3. Ruben, what you got?
All right. Here's my entry for cutest card in the set. This is what I think is the cutest card in the set. And if you get a close-up of the art and zoom way in on Displacer Kitten.
Oh, my God.
It's the most adorable thing I've ever seen. Displacer Kitten is 3 generic into blue for a 2/2 for a cat beast with avoidance, which is an ability that Displacer beasts have. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So very interesting play patterns to happen with Displacer Beast, just Displacer Kitten here. 2/2 for 4 is a little bit fragile, but you're able to protect it. It's able to blink itself, as Displacer Beasts are able to do.
Yeah, I saw this card and thought it was very, very cute. I wish that, like, I'm wondering what the full art of it actually looks like, because it's kind of dark, so it's a little hard to see when it comes to like the tentacle bits and stuff. But it is very cute, and I loved the Displacer being added in the last set, and it wasn't particularly great, but this one I think is really neat.
Yeah, I think this is brilliant. I agree the stats seem super low, which to me says this is probably super powerful, because once it starts going, you're just like blinking just everything and going bananas. And it's also the only black bordered kitten that exists in Magic. There were
Amazing.
Wow.
2 silver bordered kittens.
Right. Half kitten, half, and adorable kitten.
But this is the only one in black border. So, Nerd Girl, what's number 3?
I'm surprised to hear that with the amount of dogs in the format. Like, that's interesting. My number 3 is...
There's been cats, but, you know, to be
no
named
kittens.
kitten.
No kittens.
That's it.
So this is just, I think, a card that's going to be really, really popular. And I know this top 10, I try not to usually, but I got a lot of white on this top 10. I have a soft spot for it, but I also know that people really love angels. So let's talk about the Windshaper. This is a 5 mana, 4 colors and a white for an angel with flying and flash. It's a 4/4, and it says when it enters the battlefield, during the declare attack step, each attacking creature, you may reselect the player or planeswalker that creature is attacking. So you just get to like shift everything around, and someone who's attacking you, you could then have them kill all of their other planeswalkers and do a bunch of stuff. So it's very interesting for EDH madness. It's not going to be very good in heads up EDH, where this is one of the things I wanted to actually bring up, was that like most decks you play, I've seen people shuffle up an EDH deck together in a group, or they'll shuffle up the same exact deck heads up, whereas this kind of does nothing in that situation. So I wasn't quite sure, do people like side cards in and out based on what they're playing? But I found it very interesting.
I mean, this one has a 0% chance of being added to Arena, which is fine, but this is the 100% card that I would want to play as a commander player at a commander table. Like, I would love the ability to just kind of move pieces around and, you know, make deals with people. And like, that it's a giant monster attacking you over there. That's, almost gonna be dead after that. But this person, they would be dead if I were to move this around a little bit. So yeah, give me more cool move stuff around the board, man. Let's go.
Yeah, the effect that this card has is unique. There is no card that does anything like this, as far as I can recall. Also, more male angels. That's it. More, non-binary and male angels. We don't need every angel to be the platonic ideal of female beauty.
The only card I can think of that's close is Master Warcraft.
Sure.
That showed up in Ravnica and was reprinted in Commander Legends, actually. But again, even then, that's a little bit more kind of involved, because at that point, you tell them which ones to, go to attacking. And these, like, oh, I'm going to kill so-and-so. It's like,
these rearrange the attackers. They don't get to choose the attackers.
Exactly.
I agree that we should have more, just not female ideal type of angels, but because the angels are also very like warrior-esque typically, I get like a Valkyrie feel when it comes to angels in Magic, and Valkyrie are supposed to be like a army of women. So like I've never really had that be a problem in my brain, but like it is really cool to see more unique and interesting takes of it.
Yeah. I'm not saying that that it's a problem that we have so many. I just think that, especially in a Dungeons and Dragons set, we have Solars. And of course we have Lulu, the Hollyphant, who is herself a celestial being. There are lots of celestials out there that aren't necessarily thin blonde women. Depictions of powerful women, very good, but also depictions of other types of angels, I would like to see more of.
Yeah, I definitely like it. I just meant that I had never really thought of it until you said it, because in my head they were just kind of like Valkyries. So,
well, speaking of white creatures that are super duper cool, that show something that's never more or less been shown on a Magic card per se. If we're going to talk about the male angels, we got to talk about, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, the first amputee ever seen on a Magic card for Archivist of Ogma. Now, I don't even want this necessarily to be about that. It's kind of a cool thing to note in the art, because again, if you're you have an amputee, it's cool. It's not a big deal. But it's cool to have one on a Magic card, and they don't make it a thing. It's not part of their mechanical identity or whatever. Like that's just how they are. And it's also an amazing card that's going for $20+ no matter what version you're finding, because damn, this is what we've been waiting on in white. For white and generic mana, it is a 2/2 rare halfling cleric with flash. Yes, flash. Because whenever an opponent searches their library, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Let's go. Fetch all you want. Fetch on the stack. Archivist is in play. Let's go. I mean, this is good clean living. Again, this is the guy who tutors and tutors and tutors. This is the card you want against them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Usually if people are tutoring and tutoring, they're getting really big things that maybe 10 life doesn't really change. But I mean, it's just fine. I mean, it's definitely a creature you would want to have in a creature heavy deck. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. 2/2 flash that has the ability to draw lots of cards. I mean, perfect in a hate bear strategy. Ogma is the god of knowledge.
I'm so sorry. I totally missed the part where it draws a card.
Yeah, you missed the most important part of why it's $30 or whatever.
I was like, I mean, I get it's kind of neat, Evan, but like I don't really like calm down. Okay, never mind. I take it back.
And draw a card. Yes. The life is a nice bonus, but the headliner is draw 60th of your deck. Yeah. Very powerful card. I mean, we have had other amputees in terms of like people with peg legs, people missing hands, but you're right. In terms of it probably wasn't necessarily in the art description. I think it's just good to have differently abled people depicted on Magic cards.
100%. And for what it's worth, I didn't know that Winota has 1 arm, which is, again, it's also one of the, this is also one of the things that I feel like is very clear in the artwork. Like, I think and not necessarily sort of the pirates with the peg legs, but, like actual amputees, not shown that often to be clearly amputees. I thought that was kind of neat. But again, the coolest part about this card is that it's a white card that draws cards and that makes certain people suffer, and you know who those people are, and that's why this card was made.
Yeah, this card should definitely be on my list because it's, amazing white card draw. I think I read this card wrong twice. I just
no. You're like, this gains a life, and you're like, gains a life. Here, $20, gains a life.
There's 2 mana bears that gain a life when something happens all over the place. I thought this was just like a different version of that.
No big deal. Let's move on here to number 2. Nerd Girl, what's number 2?
All right. My number 2 is a fantastic card for the best format, the most fun format in the history of ever. You guys know how much I love 2HG, and I cannot wait to 2HG a Bramble Sovereign.
Ooh, Bramble's fun.
Bramble Sovereign, 2 colorless green for a creature Dryad. It's a 4/4 for 4, pretty reasonable. It says whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you do, that creature's controller creates a token that's a copy of that creature. So you could just, because sometimes you can't do it for yourself because you don't have the mana, but you can do it to them, and you just like get to do all the stuff, and it's fantastic. You can copy all their ETBs. There's so many good triggers here, and I mean, I can see how it's like a politics thing in 4-player commander games, but like I'm not really worried about that. I just want to play 2HG.
Yeah,
no,
extremely powerful card.
Yeah,
I mean, 4 mana 4/4. Those stats are tough to beat. And if you're playing 2HG, that middle of the game phase is ludicrously important. It turns 4 to 6, and that's where this card shines.
Yeah, I mean, there's I can just only imagine there's so much political potential in saying like, oh, you just played something really cool. Would you like another one? And it never attacked me ever. And they go, oh, cool. And you're like, yeah, cool, sure, let's go.
Or somebody casts something like a Fleshbag Marauder, or even something like another Massacre Girl just to get more triggers.
Sure.
Things along those lines. Very cool.
Yeah, this was a card that showed up in Battle Bond, and like when it showed up, there weren't a lot of people talking about it, as I recall. It was like maybe a $3-4 mythic of it's kind of meandering, and over time just up as it got more and more interesting for people to copy other people's creatures.
Yeah.
Ruben, what's number 2?
My number 2 is a card that I am kind of shocked they named a card this, because it's kind of fourth wall breaking. I mean, we have a Dungeons and Dragons set, but they didn't name a card Dungeon and Dragon. Like we don't have a split card called Dungeons and Dragons, right? We don't have a player's handbook. We don't have a Dungeon Master's Guide. But we do have a monster manual, which is wild to me. Monster manual is an artifact with adventure. The adventure part is zoological study. For 2 generic and a green, you have a sorcery adventure that says mill 5 cards, then return a creature card milled in this way to your hand. Then the artifact part is a 3 generic and a green artifact that has an activated ability of colorless and a green and tap, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. And depicted in the art for Monster Manual, illustrated by David Galliot, there's a Tarask and there's a Beholder. So those are some options of things that you could put onto the battlefield.
Yeah, I like that this thing, the art is sort of like a textbook.
Yeah.
And I love my Monster Manual. I used to carry it around and plan my D&D games when I was a kid. And I love adventures, and I like the idea of having a monster manual in the game that does something. So, this is very flavorful being an artifact as like a common D&D item. I love everything about this card. I think it's one of my favorites. I only had it at number 9, just because it doesn't seem to have the flair of a lot of other cards, but I think it was exactly something I wanted to have in this set.
But I'm okay with the flair that it does have, essentially. This was the first card that I saw that was an artifact with an adventure, and I'm just like, I just don't care. It's cool, it's fun, it works together, it makes the card mesh well. Like, if the card did not have the adventure part of it, it wouldn't be that interesting. Like, at least there's another aspect of it of, do you try to rush it out and for 6 mana put whatever you want, into play? Or do you want to, is it early and it's turn 2 or turn 3 and you're trying to get stuff going, and so you're able to use the other half of it? That card is super interesting, and it's getting expensive. For my number 2, it's not often where I read a card and I go, for God's sake, and I don't get them all the time. Wizards doesn't make them that often, quite frankly. And before everyone had seen all of the ancient dragons, they kind of all showed up on one big day, if I recall correctly, or at least over the course of a day or two. And this was the first one I saw. And I was like, for God's sake, are you serious? Are you really serious with Ancient Copper Dragon? Are you for real? Are we living in this timeline? For 2 red and 4 generic mana, it is a 6/5 flying Elder Dragon. Okay, cool. It's got to hit the other player. Okay, fine. But when it deals combat damage to a player, you roll a d20 and you make that many treasures immediately. I mean, you want to talk about a game ending because you reanimated some stuff? A game will end when you make 18 mana for free when you hit them 1 time.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen that with Old Gnawbone, right? Old Gnawbone hits somebody and the game ends immediately with a bunch of treasures.
Yeah.
This one doesn't even need any help. You just hit him with this.
This was the one I was like, you know, a D10 would have been fine. A D10 would have been okay. It would have been cool. A D12 would have been fine.
No. If you're going to do this ability, it has to be a D20. If you're going to do it...
It needs to be sectioned, though.
Sure.
And it makes sense for them to be sectioned because that's what you do in D&D.
Yeah, I just, woof.
Yeah.
I just, for God's sake. Yeah, please give it Myriad. Let's go.
They could also say half that many rounded down.
Yes, and that would have been...
That would lower the variance a lot if you want, you know, between 1 and 10 or whatever. That would be good.
For what it's worth, I'd have been okay with that too. You know, it's where they were just like, you can make 20 treasures and we're okay with that. And I'm like, really? I know it only happens 1 out of 20 times, but like 1/4 of the time you have 15 plus treasures being made. Like,
the other thing about this one is that it's in red, which has things like barbarian class. It has, you know, other ways to interact with dice rolling. So yeah, I think that this one, the combination of the ability immediately allowing you to get payoff, unlike necessarily the white one that gives you 1/1s that can maybe attack the next turn, or the green one that can pump your creatures and attack next turn. This one is, you get to cast a whole new bunch of spells. This one is like a sort of feast and famine almost, right? This one's almost a Bear Umbra. You just get a whole nother second main phase of mana a lot of the time. And that's an extremely powerful effect. And being in red, allowing you to maybe re-roll some of those dice, also a huge deal.
Your average roll is 10. You're on average making 4 more mana than you used to cast. The card's insane. Let's move on here to number 1. Nerd Girl, what's your number 1?
I think I have a fan favorite. This is going to be a hit. I can't imagine that people will not love this card. It fits all the criteria that everybody wants to see. And it's an angel, it's a knight, it's a solid creature, does a bunch of stuff. So let's talk about Battle Angels of Tyre? Tyre. Battle Angels of Tyre. We got a 4 mana, 2 colorless, white for a creature angel knight. It has flying and myriad. It's a 4/4, and it says when this battle angel deals combat damage to a player, draw a card if that player has more cards in hand than each other player. And then you create a treasure if that player controls more lands than each other player. Then you gain 3 life if they have more life than each other player. So it does kind of incentivize you to always go after the person with the most, which you kind of want to be doing anyway, which is kind of neat. And you get 1 or more of these abilities to trigger. It feels pretty amazing, and it's powerful for just a 4-drop.
I mean, with Myriad, you get everybody, right? Like, just whap. And if you got more cards, I draw. If you got more creatures, I do this. Like, it sounds awesome. Well, if you have none more creatures, but you have more.
Well, I mean, you only need to have more life than one of your opponents that you hit. You only need to have more, or wait, hold on. They need less life than one of your opponents. You need to have less cards in hand than one of your opponents, and you need to have less creatures than one of your opponents. Is that right?
Yes, this was my
cards in hand, lands, and then life total. Cards in hand, life total, and lands.
Yeah.
But you only have to be in second place.
Oh yeah, this was my original number 7 for Legion Loyalty, which gave them all Myriad, because I love that this has Myriad, and it's cool, and it's got like these 3 little unique triggers, and it's got the Battle Angels, and there's 3 on there, and all that cool stuff, and I love how it's catching you up and stuff, which is another thing that white needs. But yeah, overall, I would just give every creature Myriad beyond just the 1 Myriad.
Listen, I mean, obviously, if you have 8 mana, that's great, but a 4/4 flyer for 4 mana that has this ability is insane. It's insane.
Incredibly powerful.
This creature is ridiculously powerful. And of course, just for you lore hounds out there, Tyr is the god of justice. And so bringing things back into balance definitely fits within the flavor.
Nice. Well,
speaking of famous amputees as well, Tyr lost his arm in a fight with another god. So in an act of bravery and sacrifice.
Well, he sacrificed his whole arm. So for famous characters, everyone talk about them. Ruben and I share a number one. Ruben, tell us about our number one, and I'll tell him what it does.
Well, it's tough to get more famous than this character. There's no character in Dungeons and Dragons really that has more lore written about them, more detail of their life and their history of things that they've done, more nicknames, more aliases, more places that they've visited, enemies vanquished, friends made, loves had and lost, than the old sage, the old mage, the sage of Shadowdale himself, Elminster.
Elminster is a awesome, sweet new planeswalker for a blue and white and 3 generic mana. It is a 5 loyalty, legendary planeswalker Elminster. Of course, it is a mythic. And whenever you scry, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X generic mana less to cast, where X is the number of cards looked at while scrying this way. For +2, it has +2 where you draw a card, then scry 2. And for -3, you exile the top card of your library, create a number of 1/1 blue fairy dragon creature tokens with flying equal to that card's mana value, and Elminster can be your commander. So it's the Scry commander, and they've never had a Scry commander, so not only is it a super cool character in D&D, it's the Scry commander. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that it sets itself up really well. So I like that the draw comes before the scry, so you're not necessarily be able to dig for the thing that you're going to be able to cast at a discount, but it also lets you scry too, because then you untap, draw a card, and the second card that's now on top of your deck is the card that you could potentially be exiling with the negative ability. So it allows for a lot of steps and a lot of important decision-making things. And I think that makes for a really, really neat, and it doesn't seem like, Teferi nonsense. So I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. Really cool to interact with Scry as a mechanic. It's a very cool design card. I think that people were a little surprised that Elminster wasn't in the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and instead we got Mordenkainen, who is, to be fair, another very famous wizard who was friends with Elminster. Ed Greenwood, who created the Forgotten Realms, this is kind of his self-insert. The sort of aloof, weird dude with a white beard who writes a lot. And so it was kind of shocking that Elminster wasn't in the core set version, but I'm very pleased that we got him here.
And the have +2 of Serum Visions, and then the -3 can go off twice after you +1, which is awesome because you can use for the scry for both cards on top. Like, there's just so much that just like works on this Planeswalker. It is absolutely wonderful, and congrats to the R&D team who did all that good work on it. That said, that was our top 10 Commander Legends 2 cards. You'll see them on screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Nerd Girl's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win $50 worth of anything at CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my 2 co-hosts. Thank you, Nerd Girl.
Thanks for having me, guys. See you next week. 2 weeks.
The week after that. Thank you, Ruben.
Yeah. See you in a little. See you after a long rest. How about that?
See you soon. So we move here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com and AltarSleeves.com, my co-host, MTG Nerd Girl and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mikes subreddit, like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Or join us here in a few weeks. Same time, same place for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.